I'm Joanna Szupinska. I'm a Senior Curator here at UCR ARTS and curator of this exhibition, Christina Fernandez, Multiple Exposures. Today I'm talking about Untitled Multiple Exposure number 4, Bravo, from 1999. The photograph is part of a series of 8 made by Christina Fernandez in the 90s. In each work, the artist has inserted the image of her own body into relation with historical images of indigenous women in Mexico. The photograph here is from 1965. Making 2 exposures on each negative, she first re-photographed works by modernist masters from art books, then dressed, posed, and lit herself in a way that her self-portraits, which we see here on the right, which she made in a lighting studio, relate to her source material, so this photograph by Bravo. These double exposures include appropriations of images by the photojournalist Nacho Lopez, the cinematographer Gabriel Figueroa, the Italian photographer and communist activist Tina Modotti, and the so-called father of Mexican modernist photography, Manuel Alvarez Bravo. Fernandez made this series of photographs after her first trip to Mexico. The Chicano movement in which she was raised really celebrated indigenism, so she was quite troubled going to Mexico for the first time to witness deep racism there. She wanted to celebrate the indigenous figure, and in particular the woman. So when she came back to Los Angeles, she went to her school libraries where she had studied at Cal Arts and UCLA. She went to the arts libraries and pulled photo books by these canonical photographers and started to scrutinize the photographs. How did the woman appear in these photographs? How was she part of a larger composition? But really what Fernandez was doing was zeroing in and cutting out the rest of that composition. So for instance, this visit to the cemetery by Manuel Alvarez Bravo, she's cutting out the cemetery. We don't see the graves, we don't see the wall, we don't see the larger context. We're really focusing on this woman, and the way that Christina has photographed her, she's completely blown out. We barely see her face. But what we do get is Christina in relation to this woman, in an embrace of sorts. So what we get is a contemporary artist who is relating to the history of photography, this very masculine, patriarchal history that she has inherited. She's relating to that photographer. She's also switching the gaze, so she's making a self-portrait instead of looking at another subject. And then she's looking at the woman and placing herself in relation to her. So there's a triangulation of gazes between the 2 women, between the 2 photographers. We sort of experience Christina observing the woman, or Christina observing the photographer observing the woman. We observe ourselves then taking in both the historical photograph and the contemporary one. And so it's a play of gazes that shows a very multi-layered identity, multi-layered relation to the history of photography. And that's why it's sort of at the conceptual core of this exhibition. This is the key, right? The relation to the self, the body, the woman, the history of photography, and that permeates out into the whole exhibition.